it is done. I'm just so happy. Yeah. Howdy, 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 and welcome to the video. My name is Winter. In case you didn't know, I have one published book so far. It's called Thick as Blood. You should check it out. I'll link the first chapter below. But today we're going to be talking about the scum at the end of the road. And before I start just like blubbering on and trying to like explain what the story is about, I'm just going to go ahead and read the blurb I have. Bless me. I'm also going to put this in the description box below in case you wanted to read along. Melanie Elwood was a favorable girl. Bright and inquisitive, she and her father lived harmoniously in the rural fishing town in central Kansas, as harmonious as possible with him being a semi-recluse and her mother deceased, until she stumbled into an unthinkable friendship with Herrick Birch, the abrasive son of the town's drug dealer. Their bond, kept private from everyone else and strengthened during their long nights of sleeplessness, became unbreakable when Herrick appears one night with blood on his clothes and a gruesome request. Now, 8 years later, Melanie's forced to relive that night and the ones leading up to it as her path crosses with Herrick's once more. Dun dun dun. So the blurb was short and sweet and to the point. I didn't want to drone on and on. I just wanted a little snippet of like what you would be in for. And I guess I really just wanted to do that due to the fact that this is a novella. You know, it's not a full-length novel. There's not a lot going on like you would find in a full-length novel. That being said, this is my first ever crack at a novella. It is also my first time ever writing a story that is not young adult. Even though the bulk of the story takes place where our narrator is in high school, it's pretty obvious that it's not a 15-year-old's mind that you're delving into. It's definitely more of an adult mind kind of reflecting back on, you know, what happened to them. As well as that, the themes are a little bit darker for young adult. There's a different vibe going on than your typical coming-of-age story. This is also my first time ever trying just like a plain contemporary story with no supernatural or paranormal twists. The setup is one you might actually find in a small town in rural Kansas, which to me adds its own layer of eeriness because of what the story is about. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, you realize this actually could happen, and honest to God, it probably has. In addition, this is also the first time applying a frame to my story. And this basically means that the story starts out in the present. My narrator and my other sort of main character that the story is centered around are older. They are in their 20s. We meet both of them as they are now, and then shortly after that we jump back into the past, where in this case it's 8 years previous. So they're both teenagers in high school, and that's where the bulk of the story takes place, and then at the end we jump back into the present. This was a lot of fun, actually. I was sort of always a little bit intimidated by this style of storytelling, like what's the point? But I feel I put it like effectively to good use. Like there's a point, there's a reason why I set it up this way, and I believe it made for like a really good like punch at the end. I'm so excited about that. And in case you haven't been following me for a while, I'm just gonna quickly explain how the story came about. So I started writing this during Camp NaNoWriMo for the month of July. My original goal for the first draft was for it to be 30,000 words, because that's pretty much your average length for a novella. But my ending word count for the first draft only turned out to be like 21,000 words. For my final draft, I added like 2,000 words to it, because I'm an underwriter. I always like to add in stuff later, give it, you know, the buff that it needs. And it still technically is a novella, but in my mind, I feel it's more of a glorified short story, like a longer short story. So the idea for the story started out like most of mine do. I start with characters. I'll almost always just have a scene of two characters in my head or one character, you know, doing whatever. And from there I build a story around it. In this particular case, I actually remember when I got the idea for this and I wrote it down in my book. This is like towards the very beginning when I first started this thing, and the idea for it, like the initial one, came on May 4th, 2016. So I've been sitting on this guy for a while, and I will say like it has drastically changed from when I first wrote it down. And I can't exactly, you know, read out this whole like thing because I have like a whole start for it, because it starts out at the climax. That's where the idea originally came from. I'm not sure exactly where it came from. I don't think it was a dream. I think before here I was reading Wonder Book by Jeff Vandermeer, even though this is like 100% contemporary and has nothing to do with science fiction or anything. Also, I think I only kept 1 or 2 elements from my original idea. I definitely had my main character was a girl, and then her friend was a guy. The sort of good girl, bad boy vibe was still in there. They have different family members. They lived in a different location. But then at the end, I do jump forward in time, but I'd never really planned on it being a frame story, so I guess that element stayed the same. It's definitely one that fleshed itself out as I started writing it, and if you watch the Camp NaNoWriMo vlogs, then you'll see that whole process. All in all, this was a really fun exercise for me. I definitely had a good time playing with all these different elements that I've never tried before. Definitely gonna have to keep going with novellas and shorter stories and contemporary stuff. Like I said, this was my first crack out of all of that. I think it was a really good confident first try, and it's a nice little bundle of a story. Well, not nice, it's kind of dark, but hopefully it's enjoyable if you did end up reading it. And like I mentioned briefly in the beginning of the video, it's done. Except for a few little tweaks here and there. I am currently working on the cover, which there will be a video for that. And once that's all sorted, I'm gonna go ahead and order my proof copy, and then hopefully from there it'll be ready for the world. I've also set up a blog for the Scum at the End of the Road, a whole little book blog like I have for Thick as Blood, so I'm gonna link that below. I also have the first chunk of the beginning there, so if you wanted to read it, get a feel for the story, see if it's something that you're interested in, that'll be down below as well. And I'll also link the Thick as Blood blog, I'll list my home base. Just want to say thank you so much for watching and for supporting me, being here through this journey. But yeah, so that's all I have for you today. Hope you have a good one, and I will see you later.